for the tour. We appreciate that. So now we'd like to ask a few questions. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been living here in Cedar Edge?
We purchased land here in 2017, and we moved from Fruita in 2018.
Okay. And when did you start creating this style of art?
I had to look back at the files, and the answer is 2013, about 7 years ago.
Okay. So you're relatively new to it then. Okay. And did you learn this technique on your own, or was it an extension of your occupation?
No, although my occupation put me on the computer, this was self-taught, and but just as anything these days, there's online tutorials, there's YouTubes, and this particular software application, Moto, they produce their own tutorials, and so I made use of those. With all of these complex and mature software packages, the learning never stops. I mean, it's so deep. I don't care if it's Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever, or Microsoft Excel. I mean, spreadsheets. I mean, you can just go and go and go. So it's interesting. I'm sure that the painters feel the same way. It's like if their mind is open, they're going to find new techniques. And so the creative process is interesting because to what extent are you going to allow yourself to be distracted by learning new tools? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you need to draw the line and say, well, today I'm just going to sit down and experiment, Mm-hmm. But it doesn't take long, and it's like you're inspired, and it's like you're going to take this new thing and and make something with it. So it's pretty. I don't know. The whole creative process is one of freedom. I'll walk into a gallery and I'll look at art and I'll say, does this speak to the human condition? Does this stir any emotion? And does it give me a sense of freedom? Do I sense freedom in this artist? Is this artist celebrating freedom in his creativity? And I hope that comes across in my stuff.
Well, it does, definitely. So do you begin with your own photographs?
No, this is my work is intentionally all within the virtual 3D realm. And as I said, I'm using Moto, and it's for those of people who are familiar, it's in the same class as 3ds Max, Cinema 4D, Lightwave 3D. There's numerous programs. In fact, there's freeware. Blender is a good application to get into it as well. These things are so powerful because you can do renders and animation, all kinds of effects. There's physics. There's gravity. You can drop things. You can bounce things. You can blur motion. It's just unlimited.
And so the software is where you get the background images that were.
Yeah, if you can call it background. But I like, instead of just making a flat background that looks like simulates a background, I like to actually have elements that are in the distance that are that are real background. That way, when I change the camera angle or something, I don't have to fuss with that mat in the background. It's all the real thing.
Okay, all right. And then how long does it take for you to complete a final piece?
As I become more adept at using the tools, the time is reduced, but it still takes hours to model something, and that's part of the process. There are libraries online. I could bring stuff up, but because I like to model and because I consider it part of the process, I like to do my own stuff. Mm-hmm. And by requiring that of myself, I get better at being a modeler. but most of these pieces have taken like 30 to 60 hours.
Well,
If you ask Sonia, my wife, she says it takes more.
Longer.
But
Yeah.
it's like, I was like, oh, that's my best estimate. It's hard to say because, I often, as I said, I often lapse into experimental or learning modes, and, can you really assign that to the time it took to do this composition? And then, yeah, so.
Is it hard to make changes once you're finished?
No, just like, music software these days, changes are really easy, and it's one of the great things. But, it's a double-edged sword because, in post-processing, you've got all of this freedom, and you have to rein it in. You have to draw the line somewhere, and uh, there's something you can miss about the old days where the musicians will come into the studio and they'll play it live, and they made it take 2 takes, but all of the time signature changes or the tempo changes are all just like so organic and so there. You have to work hard with digital software to get an organic feel. And the same goes for this art.
Okay. So are you currently engaged in more of this type of art?
No, it's funny. I look back at my life and I had so much interest in so many creative endeavors, music. I played saxophone I studied saxophone, and it's, if I had any, I don't know, playing jazz saxophone is like a really difficult thing, and it's hard not to be frustrated. But there was a time in my life where just hearing a bell or I collected instruments. I had dulcimers and xylophones and bass guitar, everything, all these things, and because the sound of just this instrument just stirred your imagination. You said, oh man, just think of all the things you could do with this, and so there was a purity to experiencing sound as a youthful person that eventually ebbs away. And fast forward decades later, I come to some, I found myself frustrated with the world, what I was seeing in the social political realm, and so that frustration really, bubbled up and came out in this art, and I've reconciled. I've found some peace in my old age, and those emotional elements are not driving my creativity anymore. I'm just like too darn happy.
It's not a bad thing.
And so I haven't done anything you could consider creative in this way for years now. And I ask myself, it's like, well, wait, why don't just like sit down and go do something, or go practice your horn or something. And I keep waiting for me to like turn around and do something.
Maybe you'll find a motivation at some point. Or maybe not.
Yeah.
You'll go to something else.
Yeah, well, okay, so I'm flying radio control models now, and it's a very meditative thing. The plane is flying, and you have to focus. But last year I flew every day. I had like 220 hours of flight time, which is just crazy. It's basically obsessive and crazy, which is where all of my hobbies and pastimes throughout my life. It's like I get obsessed. But then, and then there's modeling. It's like I always come back to this modeling thing. So I enjoy fussing with the planes, repairing and upgrading, and I'll change the graphics, you know, I'll change the colors, or I'll do this or that. And so, you know, there is a, you know, mildly creative aspect to what I'm doing now, and it's satisfying, because, you know, anytime your attention is taken, and it's like, you know, you look around and 3 hours has dissolved, you know, I tell you, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so,
Something's entertaining.
yeah, it's like,
Creative.
right.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Is there anything else you'd like to add to?
No, I want to thank my wife. She's been so supportive in so many ways. It just like, throughout, you know, you're not seeing my photography, you're not seeing all these other things, but she has been so instrumental in allowing this to happen, and emotional and intellectual support. So yeah, I would definitely want to say that, and you guys, wow, what a you were a big source of a big reason why we've moved to Cedar Ridge, because you know, you're representing what we want to see.
Well,
So,
well, thank you. Thank
so,
you for being a
wow,
part of it.
we thank you.
Well, it means a lot, and we really appreciate you being in our gallery. What an honor. Thank you.
So,
Thank you. And we do hope people will come and see Brian's work. As I said earlier, we're open Thursdays to Saturdays, 10 to 4 p.m., and Sundays, noon to 3. And we would be more than happy to give you a personal tour outside of those days and times. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
so much, Brian.
you guys are the best.
Well, you're pretty special too.